I got 1 more minute because the counter was not working, so that's great. Meedan has been supporting MediaParty for a while, and we're super happy to be here one more time. I'm Caio. I'm a software engineer. I lead the development team at Meedan. And Meedan has been around since, I've been at Meedan for 12 years, and Meedan has been developing tools for fact-checking for the last near 15 years now. And it's amazing to see how much has happened since then. We started very small, doing projects on the Middle East with some partners around the Arab Spring and all the conflicts that happened in the region around 2011 in Egypt, in Lebanon. And it has expanded over time, and we started to do more projects around the world, election projects in many parts. And today we've been working more in near 50 countries now, and with more than 50 organizations running check for tip lines, and in near 30 languages right now. So yeah, 5 years ago, I was who was here MediaParty 2019? I can't see because there's a light here, but okay, good. So you see the new stuff. Everyone else's house see a bit of this history. So in 2019, I was presenting a bit about our work. It was very early stage with us working with media verification and fact-checking on messaging platforms. So all the work that Meedan did before 2019 was fact-checking with journalists doing the curation work of the content to be fact-checked and using our platform to verify that. And then in 2019, we have this new version where we could connect check to messaging apps, and then people from the public were able to send content to those messaging apps to be fact-checked by the partner organizations running check. So it was a new phase where people from the audience could connect directly to those organizations and ask for content to be verified. And of course, a lot has happened since 2019. And I'm not talking about only the fact that Argentina won the World Cup in 2022, but all the other changes to the world. Of course, the impacts of the COVID pandemic and the changes that's brought to it, like newsrooms were forced to rapidly adapt more to the digital space. I guess that many of us here have been through that, and then suddenly you had to be on Zoom calls, on Google Meets, and the digital adaptation was forced for many of those organizations. And from the public side, there was a greater demand for reliable information, because everyone was home, and then was relying on information from outside to get informed about everything that was happening, and not only related to the pandemic, but about everything else in the world. Of course, all the advancements in artificial intelligence in the last years, I'm not going to get into too much details about that because it's going to be discussed a lot here. But AI is now mostly a day-to-day task for many of us, either by users or by people really using the tools to create content or to automate some tasks. And I'm going to touch base a little more on Meedan's approach in general for AI and how we see it as part of the journalism workflow, especially for fact-checking. I'll get to that in a minute. And of course, the rise of new misinformation dynamics, more video content to be fact-checked, the rise of deepfakes, which for many years were costly and more complex to be created, and then suddenly, it's now more common to be around, and we had to respond to all that. And specifically on the messaging space, it's just continued to grow. So we started with connecting fact-checking to messaging apps in 2018. We started only with WhatsApp, and then we evolved to other platforms, and only in those 5 years, WhatsApp, for example, grew from 1.8 billion users to near 3 billion users now, worldwide. So it's huge. And the other messaging platforms that we work as well, they just continued growing and have user bases in the house of billion of users as well. So for the ones of you that's here the first time, or the ones of you maybe don't remember, Check is Meedan's main product for connecting newsrooms and organizations with their audience. So these organizations can have a messaging, what you call a messaging tip line, which is a channel in a messaging platform that is public, and then people from your audience can send content to be verified. And it's a tool that's available for everyone to reach out to us and starts using. We currently support WhatsApp, Messenger, Telegram, Viber, and Line. And we are working on, we're always working to respond to the new platforms that's also emerge and how we can connect to them. For us, as in our organization operating globally, it's super important to support some apps that may not be very popular in one country, but are very popular in others as well. So we try to be as flexible as possible on that. And then all that content that is sent from the public to those tip lines, they are grouped, and then they are available in a web interface where journalists and fact checkers and people from the organization using the check tip lines can verify that content. So this is where AI plays a role here. So we use an approach that we call human in the loop. So we try to use the AI and the automated tools to optimize the fact-checking and verification work as much as possible. We do that by grouping content that is similar, by identifying some keywords, by prioritizing content that may be getting viral faster, so that we can optimize the fact-checking work as much as possible and make sure that the humans doing the job can use the resources the best way to really verify the content, to really verify what's worth verifying, to really respond to what's most demanding from their audience. And then we can use the automated tools and artificial intelligence to help with that, but not to replace that final words that we still believe that relies on the journalist and on the fact checker doing that verification. And so we use AI to organize all that, and then people from the audience that sends content to that tip line can also receive responses right away about whether that content is true or false or somewhere in the middle, because we know also that it's not only those two that exist. And then this also optimizes the fact-checking work, because then it's not needed to verify something that was verified already. So this also helps by making sure that the journalist is not verifying the same information more than once. And for the user side, it's also super important, because then they can get immediate responses about their queries. And over all those years, we've been responding and evolving the tool to that. What I showed before was the high-level basic workflow, where we connect to those messaging platforms with the fact-checking application, and then users can send content to be verified. We started in 2018 with this first version. Over the years, we've been adding support to new platforms and allowing grouping multiple user messages into a single request, because something that we noticed in everywhere we work is that many people still think when they are talking to a tip line like that they're directly talking to a human right away. So we don't want, again, to put noise on the journalist's work, and we want to avoid that they need to verify something like, hey, can you please verify my content, or things that are like not the piece of information to be really fact checked. And in 2021, that's where we implemented this improved AI support that I've been talking here on. We started on grouping content that is similar, and we do that not only for text, but also for image, audio, and video. And as a side, video is something that has been growing a lot in the past years and in that period, because not only the tools for producing and editing videos are more available and the tools are easier to use, but also because connection also has been making it more popular for people on those messaging platforms to use videos more widely. We had a big change in 2022 on some of those projects that I'm going to show here, on tools for collaboration. And collaboration is a key thing in those projects that as I'm going to show. So this is the second level of support that we wanted to provide to newsrooms. So on many like big projects like elections or covering important events in the world, like health related to crisis. Usually there are many organizations working on that same problem, and you want also to be sure that they are able to work effectively together. And then we started to create more tools for collaboration. Before 2022, all those organizations had their own spaces in Czech and just worked on their own. And then 2022, we started to provide some tools that allowed the content to be shared between those organizations. So this just makes the whole environment stronger for everyone, because they had more content to look at, and they had that earlier, and for the audience as well, because then those content should be fact-checked, would be available faster as well. And in 2024, besides all those tools for sharing, we've been working more, also going a little beyond fact-checking. So something that we noticed over time also is that fact-checking is, if we talk only about fact-checking itself, it's limited in many cases. And what we noticed in most of those tip lines is that users send queries about broader topics. And then we started to also add support to something that we call explainers that allow contents about general topics to be created inside the tool, and then artificial intelligence tools that we have inside the app use that content to answer user queries that are not user questions, that are not purely traditional fact-checking, but questions more broadly about different topics. And then over the years, we've been supporting some major election projects around the world. These are some of them. In these last minutes here, I'm just going to highlight some of them, and one or two things that we identified that were interesting and that were like highlights from them. One of the biggest ones we had, and that's something that, of course, particularly makes me proud, was the project that we ran in Brazil in 2022, what was called Confirma. So we had the electoral, the electoral organization, the parts of the government that organizes the elections in Brazil. They had a WhatsApp channel, and then we connected that to Czech, to our tool. And then the partners that already had their own tip lines running in Czech, they would receive requests for fact-checking that were sent to this WhatsApp of the electoral organization in Brazil, and then they could respond to those queries, and those would be sent back to the users on that tip line. So this was a collaborative effort, because from the audience side, they just sent questions to the electoral organization WhatsApp number. But then, under the hood, there were all those amazing organizations here working together to verify that content. And of course, it was a huge project. We have 347,000 questions answered during like 1 or 2 months before the elections. The day before the elections, we had a peak of 32,000 questions answered. And technically speaking, I'm more from the technical side. It was a challenge also for us to support that scale, so that was a good exercise for us also to be sure that we were able to support this kind of peak. And something that is very interesting is that a lot of the people that were using the tip line were sending content about asking things like, hey, how can I vote? Where I vote? So very personal things. So that was an interesting learning for us too, that users are going to use those tools to answer their needs, not necessarily for what you build them for. So having alternatives for that are super important. Here in Argentina, to highlight this one that we did with Eco Feminita, here also focusing on gendered disinformation. We're going to talk more about that in a workshop that we have tomorrow as well. In India, this year, we worked with many partners. It's the biggest election in the world. They also worked together in a collaborative effort. And we still don't have the numbers because it's very new and it's it's still embargoed, but we also worked with many fact-checkers in India for that. And finally, in Mexico, also just 1 month ago, we worked in a similar project, very similar to the one that we had in Brazil, where the electoral organization had a WhatsApp number where people from the public could send questions, and those were answered by the partners participating in the coalition. And there we identified the same thing we found in Brazil as well, that people are going to send questions to those bots to respond to their needs, and pretending they're talking to a person. You know, we saw things like, hey, my mom wants to know how to vote, where she votes, something like that. So this needs to be prepared to identify those tools to go beyond that. We have a huge network of other partners, which, of course, I don't have enough time to talk about them here. And next, we'll keep working, you know, going beyond fact-checking, as I was saying, with more explainers, thinking more about the big picture, about bigger questions that the users have and that organizations can help respond, and fostering more collaboration for organizations working on similar problems, and of course, make sure that we can keep scaling, because the messaging apps usage and internet usage more broadly are going to just increase the demand for those tools. So thank you very much.